is a civic duty. Let's register on the electoral list. This is a message from Equinoxe Television.
Six p.m. in Bamenju, that is in the west region of Cameroon. Same time right here in Akwadwala. Good evening, dear viewers of Equinoxe Television. Thank you so much for joining me on yet another edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. First, our top stories. Cameroon's government strongly condemns the recent attack on Minister of Youth Affairs and Civic Education, Munna Futsu, and the country's ambassador to Belgium, Daniel Evina. The Minister of Communication, René Manuel Sadi, in a press release, denounces what it qualifies as violent and barbaric act orchestrated on these victims by those who are the group of the Anti-Sadina in Belgium. They say all those who carried out such an attack will be punished accordingly by the law. And away from that, we'll talk politics. Can the Social Democratic Front Party repeat the 1992 scenario where others arguably say that the party won the presidential elections? This is a question in many minds as the party prepares again to lock horns with others in the highly contested presidential elections. The flag bearer Joshua Osi has released his manifesto in which he says he will resolve the Anglophone crisis in 100 days if elected. This and more is what constitutes today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast. Stay with us. If you're just joining us, then know you're watching the 6 p.m. primetime newscast. We're broadcasting live from our headquarters right here in the economic capital city, Douala. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. At least 9 separatist fighters in Bali, that is in the northwest region, have laid down their arms to join the DDR center. The repentant armed separatists begged for forgiveness from the population in regret of the killings, atrocities, abuse committed since the Anglophone crisis took the path of war. This was during their presentation to a large village crowd at the Bali grandstand by the divisional officer and the military officials. Details with Innocent Aze.
For the past 8 years, these 9 repentant separatist fighters have been fighting against state forces with the aim of separating the northwest and southwest regions from the Republic of Cameroon. After a barren but bloody and devastating armed conflict, these armed men in Bali decided to lay down their arms to join the DDR Center. They were presented by the divisional officer of Bali and the military officials at the grandstand in the watchful eyes of hundreds of happy onlookers. Bearing the Cameroon flag, one of the repentant separatist fighters by name Zabra, on behalf of others, presented their excuses to the population for the killings, atrocities and abuses committed within 8 years. We beg for your forgiveness. We never expected this struggle will end up this bloody and destructive.
We take this thing say, na palava, CPDM, SDF. We not be know we say, it will reach for this level.
We pledge to be responsible and help others who are your children to safely leave the bushes and join us. Indeed, we are sorry. Please forgive us.
Now you will not come for them when Bali people say, first you will not forgive me.
On his part, the divisional officer of Bali reminded peace, development and happiness cannot be achieved through war.
If you only build by being good, by having peace, if you only develop, if we not threaten each other, we don't get plenty people that we don't lose their life unnecessarily. We don't get businesses, houses destroyed, businesses and we don't crumble.
While speaking to the curious crowd, the civil administrative officer urged parents to advise their children, still holding arms, not to shed blood, but embrace peace to avoid being killed.
And still looking at the impact of the 8-year-old armed conflict in Anglophone Cameroon, the Bafut Council authorities recently were part of a cultural and sport event in Douala to urge natives of Bafut who fled due to the crisis to register and vote in the upcoming presidential elections. Mayor Gwanko Lawrence emphasized the importance of returning home, assuring them that the area is now peaceful. This move is part of the council's efforts to promote peace and development in that region. Malaglory tells us more.
Effects of the Anglophone crisis is still very much felt in most villages in the northwest region. Some localities remain deserted while others are inhabited by just a few.
That during the crisis, a lot of Bafut children escaped from the village and came to Douala here. And we have received more than 1,000. And it counts also to bring peace among us. It brings unity among the Bafut people here in Douala.
To keep those who are displaced by the crisis from Bafut engaged and attached to their civic responsibilities, municipal authorities engage in a sensitization, encouraging them to return home. According to the mayor of Bafut, peace has returned.
Inform the youth and the entire Bafut population that Bafut back home is set to receive them back during this presidential election that is at the doorstep. So that is one of the main objectives why we came up with this competition. I'm saying first to promote social cohesion, and second to inform the Bafut community that moved out of Bafut and resident in Douala that peace has returned in Bafut, that they should come back and meet us so that we continue to support. Vocational trainings are there. The Youth Empowerment Center has been constructed, and we need the youth to go there and fill that center to empower themselves with free training.
The mayor also reminded them of the different opportunities back home, which will serve as a guarantee for young people as they return to their municipality.
We know that football is a unifying factor, and we are confident that through this football, we are going to make all the different sectors in Bafut a veritable attraction for royal and community development. And we want to use the opportunity to invite all our brothers and sisters to go back home and register for the election. Because the elections seems like it's kind of presidential election, but demographically it is very important because the population of Bafut will be determined by the number of people who go out to the country.
For the Bafut Council authorities, the event was not just a recreational gathering, but a moment to remind the youths of their role on the upcoming elections in Cameroon in spite of the ongoing crisis.
Now to something else. The government of Cameroon reacts to the attack on the Minister of Youth Affairs and Civic Education, Mununa Futso, and the Cameroonian ambassador to Belgium, Daniel Evina. In the press release signed today, the Minister of Communication, Rene Manuel Sadi, who is equally the government spokesman, condemns what it described as violent, barbaric act by members of the Brigade Anti-Sadina, insisting that the authors must face the law. He was speaking while in Belgium, where he was supposed to hold a meeting with the young people when they were brutalized. Annabella read through this minister's release and came up with this report for the 6 p.m. news.
The government of Cameroon, through the Minister of Communication, expresses dismay over what she terms the irresponsible attitude put forward by Cameroonian compatriots in Belgium. On February 28, the closing ceremony of the Youth Month, presided over by the Minister of Youth Affairs and Civic Education, Mununa Futso, was violently invaded and interrupted by a group of Cameroonians known as Brigade Anti-Sadina Bas at the Clarice Hotel Hall in Brussels.
Les infirmiers au Cameroun, vous faites quoi ici? Vous faites quoi ici? Les infirmiers au Cameroun, fichez-nous le camp!
The act by this group, described by the government as terrorists, Mincom says is unacceptable. In a communique by the Minister of Communication condemning the act of brutality, he regrets that Brigade Anti-Sadina didn't end at their first act of violence. The Minister of Youth Affairs and Civic Education was later on attacked alongside the Cameroonian ambassador in Belgium as the minister was leaving his residence in Brussels for the airport back to Cameroon. Flour was poured on Minister Mununa Futso, and the ambassador Daniel Evina was slightly injured. The government spokesperson says this other act is intolerable and unjustifiable, whatever their demands may be.
Sortez! Le Cameroun va changer!
Minister Emmanuel Rene Sadi, in a release, says the government deplores and condemns such barbaric acts against state officials in Belgium. He says Minister Mudmuna Futso was simply there to encourage the socio-political insertion of the young people, and this is totally different from whatever the members of Brigade Anti-Sardina are asking for. Rene Emmanuel Sadi adds that attacking government officials, including the ambassador, is attacking the nation as a whole, recalling that Cameroon is a democratic country where human rights are respected, thus no one should ever take the laws into their hands. They must instead follow the Republican route, which is through the law or the ballot box. Rene Emmanuel Sadi concludes that appropriate measures will be taken in the days ahead to track down the authors of the violence perpetrated on Minister Momodna Futso and the Cameroonian ambassador in Belgium. They would have to answer to their crimes in front of the competent authorities wherever they find themselves.
Indeed, Anabila, the ballot box is the only way of changing things in this country. Now to politics. The national chairman and flag bearer of the Social Democratic Front SDF party at the upcoming presidential election has promised to end the Anglophone crisis in 100 days if voted as President of the Republic of Cameroon. In a manifesto released after his endorsement, Honorable Joshua Osei says he will ban advance rent payment, dissolve ENAM, declare free education, and institute community police in the Anglophone regions to halt military intervention. From Yamshong Sanda was there and now came up with this report.
In what he says is his program to rescue Cameroon, Honorable Osei Joshua outlined 5 major steps, notably 16 breakthrough measures from day one, 100 days to end the violence in the northwest and southwest regions, 1 year to restore the dignity of the people of the Great North, 3 years to rebuild institutions, and 1 term for the socio-economic transformation of Cameroon. Under his 16 breakthrough measures, Honorable Osei Joshua promised to introduce reforms like the banning of advance rent payment, free birth and health care for children up to 2 years, free public education until the end of the first cycle of secondary education, a ban on support motions, university access with no age limit, among other things. On his 100 days to end the Anglophone crisis, Honorable Osei Joshua promised the creation of a community police force to replace military interventions, a safe return of internally displaced persons, conditional release of prisoners linked to the crisis, and inclusive and impartial mediation, the reopening of schools with security guarantees, among other points. Regarding his 3rd major step, that is to restore the dignity of the people of the Great North region of Cameroon, Osei Joshua promised to modernize the army and local brigades with technological surveillance systems. He plans to train youth, integrate them, and support them for farming and entrepreneurship. Honorable Osei Joshua also plans to make education compulsory for the people of the Great North in Cameroon. Under the socio-economic transformation of Cameroon, the SDF party flag bearer promised to end ENAM and reduce government spendings. He intends to introduce a federal system of government with an independent judiciary and parliament, except he plans to enforce local production and processing, choose a driving economic sector, and reduce external dependency by developing a local value chain. Honorable Osei Joshua of the SDF party plans to create a cultural fund in Cameroon, fix the status of artists in the country, and convert party houses into cultural centers.
And now in health, at least 50 cases of schistosomiasis have been reported in several communities in Kumba, Mehmet division of the southwest region. Health officials in the region are administering medications on patients and disinfecting water to curb the disease, which is fast spreading through freshwater snails. These measures taken were revealed during a meeting held in Kumba by the Senior Divisional Officer Tundong Chamberlain and the Regional Delegate for Public Health, Asa Luslengu. Our health reporter tells us more.
February 28, 2025, the Senior Divisional Officer of the Meme Division Southwest Region issued a communique cautioning the inhabitants of his jurisdiction about the outbreak of Schistosomiasis in Kumba. At least 50 cases of Schistosomiasis have been reported in approximately 10 quarters in Kumba, with the disease affecting children under the age of 14.
Only if you get in contact with infected water that is harboring the intermediate host of the disease. That's why if you are infected with schistosomiasis, you are liable to become anemic. In the long run, you can be infertile. It can even cause cancer of the bladder.
To curb this endemic disease, the regional delegate of public health, along with a medical team, are in Kumba for a few rock.
We've come with a team from Yaoundé to manage these cases, treat those who are already affected, and then manage those who are also at risk. So we've come with enough medication to treat the few that are affected with symptoms and all those who are at risk of schisto.
Dr. Fuber says samples will also be collected.
And then we'll do a survey, collect samples of urine and stool, which will be analyzed to have a global view of the prevalence of the disease in the division. From there, a more muscular response will take place also to disinfect the rivers, the stream, for the population to have better source of water.
The SDO, Tundong Chamberlain, calls on the population to collaborate with the health team on the field.
Let me just advise Meme population to facilitate their work, to let them make available our children, let them receive the team that is going to move left and right and welcome them.
Meantime, patients experiencing symptoms like bloody urine, itchy skin have been called to seek medical attention at the nearest health facility.
Now out of Cameroon, Gabon's military leader Brice Oligui Nguema has thrown his heart into the ring, announcing his candidacy for the presidential election slated for April 12. As Oligui positions himself as a leader to guide Gabon into a new era, many are questioning whether his presidency would bring about genuine change or simply perpetuate a military-backed continuation of the past. The country has been working towards a transition civilian rule with a new constitution adopted in November 2024, which establishes a presidential system with terms, limits, and stricter eligibility requirements. Babylon Jonathan with our foreign page roundup.
Rejoignez-moi dans cet engagement.
Gabon's military leader, Brigadier General Brice Oligui Nguema, decides to join the race to become the next democratically elected president after leading a coup that toppled the government of Ali Bongo Ondimba in 2023. His candidacy for the upcoming presidential election in April is now official. The announcement of his candidacy comes despite his initial pledge to lead the country through the transition period back to civilian rule. Brigadier General Brice Oligui Nguema, who turned 50 on Monday, 3rd February 2025, justified his decision by stating it was in response to popular demand.
Avec et après mûre réflexion.
After careful reflection and in response to your many appeals, I have decided to be a candidate in the April 12th presidential election.
Du 12 avril 2025.
Speaking in Libreville on the rainfall, he said his campaign will focus on rebuilding the nation, tackling infrastructure issues, and addressing frequent parquet. A recent change in Gabon's electoral code approved in January 2025 by the Transitional Parliament allows military officers and judges to run for office. Under these rules, Oligui Nguema must temporarily step away from his position of general while campaigning. If he wins the election, he therefore ceases from being a soldier for the time that he will be in power. If he does not, he will return to the barracks. The legislation was contentious as it authorized military personnel to be candidates in all political elections in the country, which was not possible in the past. It paved the way for Nguema to run for his first presidential term.
Now on our women's segment, rising star Naomi Leslie Njoa Eto'o, the 20-year-old sensation who's taken Cameroon's football scene by storm, voted best female player over the weekend. Naomi's remarkable journey is one of perseverance and passion. From humble beginnings, where she had to pursue her football dreams without her mother's initial blessings, to becoming a highly rated talent, Naomi's story is an inspiration to many. Our reporter Magical Gabriel profiles this young trailblazer, hailed as the future of Cameroon's female football, on this segment of the Outstanding Women's page.
20-year-old Naomi Leslie Njoa Eto'o over the weekend became the queen of Cameroonian female football as she was voted best player of the country. Unfortunately, football wasn't the dream profession that the mother of Naomi Leslie Njoa Eto'o wanted for her daughter. Her mother's wish was for the daughter to become a gendarme officer. I wanted Naomi to become a gendarme officer, but she stubbornly went into football. Coincidentally, Naomi Leslie Njoa Eto'o, who passed through the Roger Miller Training Academy in the military, not to fulfill the desires of her mother, but to join Amazon FAP women football team. She usually trained at the military camp. One day when she returned from training, she brought home boots and other football gadgets given to her by a woman. Thanks to the work done by Amazon FAP officials, Naomi Leslie Njoa Eto'o became a force to reckon with in the Women's First Division Championship, seeing her scoring 7 goals in 11 matches with 4 assists in the 2024 football season. Naomi Leslie Njoa Eto'o also showed herself in 2024 as, apart from being a regular in the under-20 women's national football team, she was a goal-scoring machine in the qualifiers to the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup, as she netted 5 goals in 6 matches and was a force to reckon with in Bogota during the Under-20 Women's FIFA World Cup. Today, Naomi Leslie Njoa Eto'o is with Gengang Women's Football Club with 2 matches already played, but still no goal. Naomi Leslie Njoa Eto'o was born on September 23, 2024 in Gide village of Nanga Eboko subdivision, Center region of Cameroon.
And that's it for this first part of the news. Talking Point is up next. My guest tonight is Barrister ATANGA MBOLE. He is the National Legal Advisor of the Social Democratic Front SDF Party. Good evening. It's a pleasure having you on Talking Point tonight.
Thank you, Immaculate. Good evening to your numerous viewers.
Barrister, how ready is the SDF Party for the upcoming 2025 presidential elections?
Well, the SDF as a political party, you would know, in May will be 35 years old. And we've had a vast experience of elections in Cameroon. So we can only be very ready for the elections, and we are carrying out the necessary steps to make ourselves the leading party and to win the elections.
Now, you rightly said the SDF clocked 35 in the month of May. However, some observers think the passing on to glory of its founding chairman, Nijon Frundi, the party has been grappling with survival with numerous resignation of some of the party members and some bigwigs. Are you convinced that elections will be favorable for the party?
Well, before I talk about the SDF after the passing of his pioneer national chairman, permit me pay homage to him, to this great personality, to this great person who ushered in democracy to Cameroon and which we are still fighting for. May his soul continue to rest in peace. We believe that his hand is still planning over the SDF for the SDF's future successes. Now, talking about the resignations or the people leaving the party, it is their choice. You know, you must not adhere to a political party if you don't like. And the SDF came in with a lot of discipline
because discipline was what was lacking in Cameroon and is still lacking today. So once you are not disciplined, the party rules and regulations are meted upon you, and you either leave or you resign or you come back. So as for the effect on the success of the party, I want to tell you that over the years, over 35 years, we've had several resignations. If resignations could extinguish the SDF, we wouldn't have been talking about the SDF today.
Barrister, you claim civil persons have resigned right from the time John Fundi was heading the party. But why is it only now that the number of resignations have skyrocketed? Don't you think there's a problem with the SDF party at the moment? No, I will differ with that fact. You know, with the advent of the social media, communication can be said to be more fluid. From 1990, we'll be having resignations. If you have to count, there'll be so many that in recent years they are insignificant, and not any kind of resignations. We had a political party where most first vice presidents, national chairpersons resigned. So not to talk of when, after maybe 2 years ago, a good number of senior militants resigned. So we cannot say it is with the advent of Chairman OC that you have many resignations. No, that's false. Many are the opinion that only a strong coalition can guarantee victory in the upcoming presidential elections. What's the stance of the SDF party towards this view, and are you not ready to give coalition a chance, just like other political parties are doing right now?
Definitely a coalition is a good thing, yes, but it is not a must. And the impression Cameroonians have been misled to have is that if there's no coalition, they cannot win. No. You know, an election involves two people, let me say two parties, the candidates and the voters, and everybody must do his or her own role. We cannot have an election situation where the voters are not doing what they are supposed to do, that is, registering to vote, effectively voting, and ensuring that their votes count. And then they expect that a few people should come together. Which one is easier, you having yourself registered to vote, or having a few individuals come together as a coalition wherein you know because of different interests they will never come together? So are we saying that if our political leaders in Cameroon never come together, we won't be going for elections or we will never win? The SDF says it is false. We've had examples, recent examples in Senegal, for example. Before the current president won, there were many parties, and he beat the incumbent during the first round. So what I want to say is that Cameroonians should not be fooled that there must be a coalition. We've had the history of coalitions which have been messy. We go into coalitions, you are serious about it, and the day before the elections you find the same people who claim to be arranging or planning within the coalition, leaving the coalition, and the next governments you find them inside. So it is a very tricky issue, and I think the coalition should be made by Cameroonians. If Cameroonians in their vast numbers carry out their own homework of making sure that they participate in the electoral process, this issue of a coalition will never come up. Let Cameroonians not be fooled that it is only a coalition that can beat the incumbent. No. If Cameroonians vote massively, they themselves will make out the coalition.
We are all aware of the saying that unity is strength. So imagine Cameroonians coming together to cast their votes, not for just one person. Don't you think that can make a very huge difference?
Thank you, Immaculate. At the beginning of my answer to your question, I did not say a coalition was bad. It's a good thing. But we are in politics and we must be realistic. 35 years down the line, the SDF has had enough experience to know what coalitions mean in Cameroon and can tell you better how coalitions function in Cameroon. Now, if you have a situation where everybody believes that he or she should be the leader, one, where everybody believes that he or she should be the flag bearer, and then nobody sitting to the other, ideologies not being the same even. We even have political parties which can never even come to a coalition because their ideologies are different, their form of governance or their manifesto is different, so it will never come together. So what we are trying to say is that let's not beat about the bush on something that is difficult, if not near impossible to happen. Let's push the ball back into the court of Cameroonians. I think Cameroonians who come out in vast numbers to vote, who prepare for elections, will determine this issue. So let it not go down into any Cameroonian's mind that if there's no coalition, they cannot win. No, do your own assignment. I said it before. It is easier for you to register to vote, effectively vote, and make sure that your vote counts than for 10 political party leaders to come together. I mean, these 10 people, these 10 heads are not more than 20 or 25 million potential Cameroonian voters, and we are still struggling to have only 8 million. So let's focus on the proper or the correct issues. Cameroonians to register to vote and vote effectively.
At the party's extraordinary convention held in Yaoundé, delegates and militants unanimously endorsed Honorable Joshua Osei as the chairman and flag bearer of the party. Can you tell me more about his manifesto? How does he plan to address the numerous challenges faced by Cameroonians on a daily basis?
Thank you again for that question, and we are happy and glad that after our extraordinary convention last Saturday in Yaoundé, the SDF came out with its presidential candidate in the person of Honorable Joshua Osei, whom I personally congratulate for his hard work and his clairvoyance in the party. He has worked a lot to merit that position. In fact, he merits every position in the SDF. I always tell people that there has been no person who has worked a lot to merit, after all, first of all, being a close collaborator to late John Funzi, whom will continue to mourn and pray God rest his soul. And he also worked a lot to be the national chairman, and he's working a lot to modernize and reform the way things are done in the SDF. So I congratulate him for that. And for his program, for his manifesto, he hasn't got an individual manifesto. It is that of the party, which has been promulgated or brought to the public ever since the party was created. You may have a few changes, but the main thing, the form of state, remains federalism. You understand? Since the SDF came to creation, the SDF has always promoted federalism in Cameroon. The institutions must be defined. And that's why in this present program, the SDF is going in for a mandate which will be like separated into two. Because our present mandate is 7 years, but the SDF intends to take the first 3 years of the mandate to bring Cameroonians together for us to discuss the form of the state and have it into a constitution after a referendum. And then when that is done, the next 4 years will be for the SDF to try to implement what the Cameroonian people would have decided in the referendum. I know your next question will be asked for mandate. The SDF is not for a mandate of 7 years, but as if you are going for election, when the mandate is 7 years, you use the mandate for the people, because the people would have voted you for a mandate. When constitutional talks will be done and the mandate will be revised either to 4 or 5, that will then continue. So coming to the other issues of, you ask, violence or crisis in the Northwest and Southwest, the SDF has said it is the only political party that can solve that problem, especially violence, and we've said within 100 days of being at A2G, violence will stop in the Northwest and Southwest regions. We know what to do, we know what it takes to do, and we'll have it, and we must tell you that it will be done with true and genuine dialogue. We cannot do it without it, and we cannot do it without the people or the actors concerned. The SDF is ready for that, and to make sure that we know the peace that we've always known in this country.
Barrister ATANGA MBOLE, STF National Legal Advisor, thank you so much for your time. And that's what we've gathered for you on today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thank you so much for your keen attention. From us over here to you over there, have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye for now.